We are live on YouTube. This is the Complete Man Podcast, episode number 2, and we're live in 3, 2. Welcome back to the second episode of the Complete Man Podcast with your host, the Complete Man himself, Purdeep Sangha. That's not like a reference to
something?
Dang it.
It's all good.
I totally screwed that up.
let's keep that on the episode. I love it, man. It's real.
Okay, you know what? I screwed up the beginning of the episode. Let's go ahead and just keep going, though. This is episode number 2 of the Complete Man Podcast. Purdeep Sangha, the Complete Man himself. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing it. I'm doing good, man. I was just gonna say I'm doing it. We were listening to the LL Cool. Oh, that's funny. But no, I'm glad, man. I'm glad we're gonna keep that beginning part because you asked me something over the weekend. You talked about, okay, with this new change in this podcast, does that mean we got to change a tire and be more formal? And I said, no, we got to keep it real because that's what life is about, right? We got to be real. We got to be authentic, and because that's who you are, that's who I am, that's what this podcast is about. So we'll keep these bloopers because I think they'll be good.
Okay, yeah, very authentic. You wanted to today talk about the problems or the challenges with virtual communication. Now, I want to first address the fact that virtual communication makes this whole podcast possible, and being able to connect with you and completely virtually. We've never met in real life, but you've had a huge impact on my life, my business, probably the lives and the businesses of a lot of listeners out there. So what's wrong with that? Why would we be bashing on the very tool that makes it possible for you to be able to reach out and affect so many people?
Yeah, actually a very good point there because there are a lot of benefits to virtual communication, like you said. And one of them is the span. You're able to get a wider audience. It's more convenient. You can consume it as you wish, for example. But let's get a little bit more specific. So it's not all bad. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that it does pose a lot of challenges because we are social beings, right, Nathan? And you understand this more than anybody because you're in that space of copywriting, which is all about how do you really get people to understand your message and understand it clearly so that they can act. And we're social animals. We were meant to be in front of each other as we were talking, right? We're not like, for example, elephants that can rumble and hear each other 50 miles away. We are meant to be in front of each other, talking to each other. That's how we kind of evolved as human beings. And we could read each other's facial expressions. We could sense each other's emotions, right? Because of our mirror neurons in our brain, because they allow us to put ourselves in that person's shoes and kind of give us a feeling of, okay, how's that person feeling? How's that person thinking? How do I react appropriately? The challenge with virtual communication is sometimes it eliminates all of that. And more specifically around text messages, email messages, all those kinds of things do not convey the message that you intend it to. Even though, and you know this, Nathan, you could be the best copywriter, but no one is going to take it exactly as you want them to take it. And here's why. Even when and this is something, if you get this actually is so powerful. It may even change how you communicate. When someone is reading something, they're reading it in their own voice and their own state of mind. So your message can be as clear as water, as glass, but they have emotions, the stuff that they were dealing with 5 minutes before, an hour before, the day before. They have their own experiences. And when people read, most people read out loud in their brain in their own voice. So they're not reading it like you intend it to be. And if that person isn't in the state of mind that you want them to be ideally, then that message isn't going to convey across as effectively as it should. And that's ultimately it. So for certain things like landing pages and your websites, you have to do that. That's part of business, right? You have to have that. And that's why, Nathan, you are so extremely good at what you do and so valuable for businesses out there because you Make it as clear as you can. You give them the best chances of getting that message across. There's also a
So,
caveat
oh, go ahead.
is if you're not in front of that person, you don't have the ability to really change their state to the degree that you want to or you need to for them to actually absorb the message you want them to.
So a couple of things come to mind when you're saying this. Number one, I had a friend that was in phone sales where he would actually call people and sell to them over the phone. And one of the things, or have leads call him and then he'd have to sell to them when they called him. One of the things that he said was he made sure he smiled, because even though they couldn't see it, they could hear the smile. And that is impossible when it comes to text. As a copywriter, I know how difficult it is to convey certain emotions, certain feelings through text. It's very, very difficult. I also see bickering and conflict on comment threads on Twitter and Facebook and text messages. When it's just text and there's no sarcasm font and people can't tell and people read into it what they want to read rather than what it is that, unless you're a very skilled written communicator, they're not getting what you're saying. They're getting what they want to hear or what they want to see. And yeah, man, so much of like the division and the conflict and the strife between like culture war issues and political issues and just people fighting over text messages and things blowing out of control because we've made this quick, efficient way to communicate that just completely breaks down. But we keep going back to it because it's easy. But you said something that I really want to kind of dig down on and explore, which is the frame that somebody else is in, the mindset that somebody else is in. And a lot of times we aren't even conscious of that. We don't even take the time to consider, what is this person dealing with? What is this person? What's the lens that they're viewing this conversation through? What's the background that they have that I might not be appreciating right now? Where a lot of times our words are just falling on deaf ears because all we care about is what we're projecting, and we're not taking the time to understand the person who's receiving.
Oh yeah, and that just opens up Pandora's box right there, because I think you talked about social media. That's why it's so powerful in a great way, but in a not so great way as well. Because when people read posts, guess what? They probably read 3 other posts from somebody else that ticked them off, and so they're already in that state of mind that when they're reading that, they take it the way they want to take it. And communication essentially is these two things: it's information and it's a transfer of energy. That's what communication is. Those two specific things. In a lot of technology or technical, or you can say technology based communication, emails, social media posts, you don't get the energy. You get the information. That energy is the energy that you have within yourself, not the energy that that person is conveying to you or trying to convey to you, because you're reading it the way you want to see it. That's the difference. Because if they were saying those words in a different tone and different pitch, maybe even a more loving way, you would take those words differently than you would if you're just reading it on a social media post. So that's why when people talk about voice communication or physical communication, and that majority of the information that we receive from that communication is not through just the words, but how the words are being said and your body language, is because your sensors are taking in that energy. That's literally what it is. Your voice is there's tones, there's pitches, which are all frequencies. Your ears are taking that in and converting that to energy, which then it shifts over to your brain. That is important to take a look at from I'm going to say from a energy perspective or neuroscience perspective. Everything that we consume ultimately gets converted into energy, and that's what our brain interprets is energy. It's not actually interpreting the sound, it's interpreting the energy that that sound has produced. It's very phenomenal when you actually think about the power behind that. So state of mind, let's get into that. And I think just from your context, Nathan, and this has been, and I don't know the exact research behind this because I don't think anybody has really produced. Some people have independently, But long form copy versus short form copy, why long form may be more effective, which is what a lot of people talk about, is because it gives you a longer chance of being able to put that person in that frame of mind that you want them to be in. Whereas short term, you don't have enough time to be able to shift their state. And so for us, when we are communicating, whether that's as business professionals, as husbands, fathers, whoever it is, just remember the most important thing that you can do is get that person in the state that you want them to take the message in. So you may need to spend a couple of minutes with your wife, right? Just engaging her, maybe holding her hand or doing whatever to get her into that state before you say you're going to buy a motorcycle. All these kinds of things have an impact. And that's why, one of my mentors told me before about timing a message. And I really didn't understand that. I was one of those guys where if I had something on my mind, I'd go say it like boom. And a lot of times that just didn't end up working well. I had good intentions. I was authentic. I was being transparent, but the timing just sucked. And so I didn't get the results that I was looking for. But it's not necessarily the timing. And I didn't learn this from him. I learned this through my neuroscience studies and he was teaching me indirectly. It's not the timing. It's a state of mind that person is in, the state of emotions. It just so happens that it's timed at a certain period of time in the day or week or whatever it is, but you need to find that state that you want them to be in when you communicate that message, or if you're skilled enough, be able to create a way for or influence their state. That's where you become extremely powerful.
So what comes back to me, especially in most of my career, I know it's crazy to look at me and believe this, but I'm usually in a leadership position, team lead position, project management position. And a lot of times some of the most challenging and yet most rewarding situations are when somebody on the team is in a very powerful, energetic mood that is going against what's productive, and being able to not get sucked into that yourself. When somebody is in conflict mode, or when somebody is in defending their ego mode, and it's going to turn into a big fight, and the possibility is that everybody just blows up on each other and everybody walks away angry at each other and nothing gets done because you got sucked into their energy. Instead of bringing them to the energy that you needed them at, they can bring you to that energy. And when you learn how to stop that and not allow yourself to get sucked in, not allow yourself to be pulled into their frame, and then be able to be the calm, guiding light that brings them into a more productive, communicative place of being, it's so powerful. And when you have a client that's paying you a lot of money to make stuff happen and there's problems on the team, and if you can be the person that doesn't get sucked into it, but pulls them into a more conducive state of mind to actually get the stuff done for the client, that is so powerful. So I wanted to get your thoughts on, you're talking about bringing people, making sure that you can bring people to where they need to be so that you can communicate effectively with them. The challenges of sometimes having someone on the team who can bring everybody to the opposite end of the spectrum, and how to deal with that as a leader, as a leader of your family, as a leader of a team in your career. So often we're presented with these opportunities to just get sucked into the conflict, and it never seems to be productive, but it seems to be 9 out of 10 times the way that most people go.
Yeah, man, that's a really, really good point because we are influenced by other people's state. And so there's three things that pop up for me. The first one is you have to be a master of your own state, and most people are not. And that enables you to be able to shift on a dime when you need to go from one state to another, when you need to transfer anger or sadness into a different emotion. And that's very powerful. It took me a long time to be able to get to that, but I've been able to do that. It's what we teach men now, is when someone gets you pissed off, how do you shift it almost immediately into a state of power so that now you're actually being like, how do I use this to my advantage? Not from a state of anger, but from a state of even love and compassion. You can actually do that. You can actually shift that. It is the most engaging thing in life that you can do, because emotions is where life is really rooted from, right? Your quality of life is dependent on your emotions. The second thing that comes into mind is you got to be so powerful with your state of mind that it can influence other people. This is where we talk about aura, right? And it's been measured by science. There is an aura, there is an energy field, especially even in your heart, an energy field that radiates out up to 3 meters away from your body. So your state has an influence on other people. And if you get more and more powerful in your own state, it actually has a biological, a neurological influence on other people's state.
Mhm.
And I'm not tooting my own horn here. This is not what it's meant to be. But a lot of the times I hear from guys, what they tell me is that when they're going through their biggest challenges, whether it's through anger, sadness, or whatever, they like to get on a phone call with me or a Zoom call, because I'm able to bring them back to a calm level just through talking to them. And that's not through any master technique. It's just being able to radiate a level of calmness, of peace, and content that they can feel. So, getting to that point as an individual is the next level. Mastering yourself first, then being able to radiate that energy out, which is second. The third thing is making people aware of their states,
Mm.
because a lot of people aren't aware of their own states, as I talked about before. A lot of people may come back across as combative or angry or whatever it is, but they're not fully aware or conscious of that. They feel the emotion, but they're not feeling and not fully aware or mindful of the impact on themselves and the other people around them.
Mhm.
Very few people want to get angry at other people. Very few people want to hurt other people consciously. And if you can bring that to their attention in terms of what their actions are doing or what their state is doing to them and to others, they will be more aware of it. That's why when we talk about mindfulness and being mindful, the first step is awareness. And we are not taught to be aware, especially in today's society, because it's go, 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 go. So if you can bring that to someone else's attention, not from a perspective of criticizing, but just, hey, look, I don't know if you realize this, constructively, it can shift a lot of people's behavior.
Mhm. So what's going through my mind right now is, number one, the fact that you said the go, go, go society, that taking that time to self reflect and say, where's my mind at? Why am I acting this way? Is this reaction actually serving me? Is it actually serving the people around me? The other thing that you were talking about is just that energy. Sometimes the just sitting with somebody and talking with them, and it sounds woo, but the more you get into personal development, the more that you get into understanding yourself and your own consciousness, the more you realize that there's these subtle things that maybe we don't fully understand yet, but definitely have an impact on ourselves and our relationships. And then I'm thinking, how much of that is stripped away with each layer of actual physical communication, physical contact that we have with each other. Through a Zoom call, we only lose a little bit of it. Through a telephone where we can't read each other's expressions, we lose a little bit more of it. Through a text message, it's almost all stripped away. There's still some of it there, but each layer of this convenient communication, we're stripping away the most important parts of actual communication.
And just, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's why, from a business perspective, we bring back it. Let's take a look at it from a personal perspective. It's just better for your relationships. You want to talk to someone, pick up the phone call and start talking to them, or a Zoom call, whatever that is. If you're not able to meet them in person, that's why COVID has been such a challenge, right? That's why people are having mental health illnesses, is because they're not getting that energy from other people.
Mhm.
And so being able to do that, and it's good for business. Get back into business development, go out and meet people, have coffees, have workshops and networking events. Those kinds of things are beneficial. If you don't believe in energy, there are a lot of studies, real scientific studies, that show this. They show that, for example, trees communicate with each other through their roots, right? That are not even in physical proximity of each other. Females, women will synchronize their menstrual cycles if they are living together. Like, this world is really beyond what we see typically. And so energy is everywhere. And we've done an episode on that. We can do another one, which, where we talk about and break it down. Everything is energy. That's what Einstein said. Everything is energy. It's as simple as that, from the words of the master himself.
Mm.
So it's out there. We just need to understand it.
So the world that we live in, for better or for worse, a lot of business communication is stripped down from a lot of that energy, and a lot of personal communication. It's great that, distance doesn't stop us from communicating, but oftentimes it's the least efficient or the least effective types of communication, but it's the world we live in. So as we're out of here, I want to get your thoughts on making the best of the situation that we're in. If you're stuck to a Slack channel for your business, or if you're stuck to text messaging because you and your partner are both in the middle of a busy day, and maybe an argument starts and the only way that you can communicate is through text message, we've got these tools, and they are what they are. And maybe they're not the best, but they do provide some benefit. So your thoughts on dealing with what it is and making the most out of it.
Okay, so let me just break this down as fast as I can. First of all, if you haven't read my book, Superfans, get a copy. It's a simple read, but it will talk about this because we talk a lot about the client journey in terms of how to shift people's emotions. And we saw a trend in this when a lot of businesses were shifting over to tech and online a decade ago. We're talking about mainstream, big corporations, right? Which were even slower than other ones. But it's just to simplify it, put as many personal touches as you can. So even if you are a fully tech business that just does software, sells online, that's it. You don't have to talk to your customers. Talk to your customers. Pick up the phone, dial them, because that is what's going to differentiate you from your competitors. We know the difference it has on client satisfaction, client retention, all these things, these numbers at the end of the day that add up to your net profit are impacted by your personal touch with people. So if you can include that into your business model, you will outperform your competitors. It's been shown, there's stats out there. So just because you're tech doesn't mean you can't be personalized or personal. So incorporate that into your business in as much as you can without hindering your profits is my recommendation on that.
Yeah. I hate to take the last word on this, but as somebody who is a copywriter, I 100% agree, because I've noticed in my own business and in the businesses that I work with, a lot of people tend to go very impersonal with their communications. It's very corporate. It sounds like it's coming from the human resources department. It doesn't connect with people. But for my own clients that deal with me, one of the things that they always say is, man, you're just a real guy. And when you write, it feels like a real expression. And the customers, the same thing. They get the emails and they're like, it feels like a real person is emailing me, not some marketer. And it always makes a huge difference. And just my last 2 cents on this is, we have these tools, and maybe it's not all the fault of the tools. Maybe it's the fault of us not taking the time to realize that we need to put that extra energy into our communications because they're lacking otherwise.
Yeah, there you go. This message has been endorsed by Nathan Fraser. So we're good to go on this one, guys. We got the pro endorsing it himself.
All right. If people want to check out more episodes of the podcast, where's the best place to go?
Check out YouTubeformen.com or mailpodcast.com.
All right, man. And until next time, we will catch you later.
I'm looking forward to it.